history.
Cemeteries are outdoor museums.
It's not just the story of the past.
When I was growing up, you would see the bones come up, especially when it rained and it got saturated, you see the bones.
It's the story of who we are.
There are babies here, there are families here, there are slaves here, there were freed black buried here, but none of them are remembered.
Who we were.
People say that as long as a person's name is spoken, that person still lives.
A story that's been told not just in books or lectures, but by the very land it happened on.
What do you do now? And that's a big question.
A land that was often compromised not by nature, but by the flesh and blood of men.
We did not treat these people as though they were human.
Cemeteries, they are supposed to be places that dignify the dead, but in hundreds, if not thousands of burial grounds for African Americans, that dignity was either never given or it was stripped away. Welcome to Justice for All, Grave Betrayal. I'm Tammy Fields. Over the next hour, we're taking a closer look at hidden, forgotten, or neglected Black cemeteries all across the country. From historic sites that fell into disrepair, like a former state park in Texas, to plots deliberately paved over by developers, like this parking lot in New York, or a mass grave of unidentified former slaves in North Carolina. But we begin in Florida. In the last 5 years, the state has seen a rise in reports of erased African American cemeteries, and some cemeteries that were preserved have incomplete records. Greenwood Cemetery here in Orlando now has intact records, but it didn't always. This section that I'm standing in right now was originally a segregated area for African Americans. In 1920, landowner and community leader July Perry tried to vote in Ocoee, Florida, while encouraging other African Americans to do the same. A white mob attacked them, killing an estimated 50 people. Perry and several others were laid to rest here in unmarked graves. Their remains were eventually identified. 82 years later, in 2002, Perry's headstone was dedicated. But thousands of grave sites across Florida and the entire country still don't have that recognition. One of the main questions that comes up, how did this happen in the first place? Sandra Weathers went to the experts to find out.
You don't have to watch the game to recognize the sound. Just like anthropologist Dr. Antoinette Jackson says, she doesn't have to see the graves to know there are likely bodies at the site of Tropicana Field in St. Petersburg, where the Tampa Bay Rays play.
This is Tropicana Field VIP parking lot number 1. Interesting thing about this is it's where Oaklawn Cemetery is located, or had been located from 1906. Starting in 1906, this whole parking lot was a cemetery.
Orange cones are now scattered in this lot used for game day parking. But Dr. Jackson says this lot holds much more meaning.
Land that is sacred, land that was used for at one point for the burial and recognition of the lives lived by everyday people in St. Pete who are now, we don't know what happened to them.
3 cemeteries were located in this area. 2 were predominantly black and 1 was segregated by race. All of the bodies were said to be relocated.
The reality is that when they built in 1949, they built a apartment complex. It was called, I think it was Royal Court Apartment Complex. At that time, when they did construction for that complex, they found bodies. Obviously, they had not moved all the bodies.
Curiosity has led to research. Jackson heads up a team at the University of South Florida that looks into the forgotten African American cemeteries.
These cemeteries were during the period of U.S. period of racial segregation. So black folks were usually buried in separate cemeteries than whites. And black cemeteries, again, were considered marginal in relation to white cemeteries.
Her team created the Black Cemeteries Network, where people report historic and forgotten African American burial grounds all over the country. It's a list that continues to grow. In Florida alone, there's been reports at an Air Force base, schools, and businesses. Thousands of graves have been discovered, including the burials on a Clearwater Schools property near where Diane Stevens grew up.
Right now, we're standing really on an erased cemetery. This used to be a cemetery from 1940 to 1954.
Stevens says she was born after the cemetery was gone and the bodies were said to be moved, but she says that's not what she saw.
And over here is where we would play, but you would see bones coming up. And so the teachers would always just have you go somewhere else and they would take care of it. We come back out and they were no longer there.
Ground penetrating radar confirmed what Stevens says she and so many others already suspected. Human remains were found on the grounds.
It makes me mad, really. How could people disrespect people and disregard people? You know, here we're supposed to hold human life. We're supposed to hold it to the utmost. And yet, we can disregard a person or treat them like that because of the color of their skin. That's an injustice.
The descendants of the people buried here formed a nonprofit called the 3C Society, or the Clearwater Colored Cemetery Society, to raise awareness about the issue and try to right the wrongs of what happened. So far, they've gotten a plaque that honors the lives of their loved ones. But Stevens says they deserve so much more.
We said that this is not enough. This is not enough for the injustice they've done to our people, and they keep doing it.
Barbara Story Love agrees. She grew up here and witnessed archaeologists confirm the graves at this site as well as a business property nearby.
There, I think, a total of maybe 525 graves that are either under the building in or under Missouri Avenue.
She's part of a group who'd like to see one large main burial site.
For us, we've asked for the graves to be dug up, the remains to be dug up and brought over here. So that's what we've asked for initially.
And while residents and descendants wait for word about the next steps, they're making sure this land is treated with respect from now on, picking up trash and making promises they intend to keep.
One day we're going to rectify this and we're going to make it right for you.
Meanwhile, Dr. Jackson and her team's research continues.
We have names, occupations, when they died, who they were. So that's going to make it a little easier to recognize and memorialize and harder to ignore, we're hoping.
A grave injustice she's hoping will be made right. In Tampa Bay, Sandra Weathers, Spectrum News.
Sandra mentioned the Black Cemetery Network, a project that aims to raise awareness about these sites across the United States. So far, they've identified more than 150 sites that are listed as either neglected, displaced, or at risk of being overlooked. It all starts with research on what truly lies beneath. There is no doubt land that's sold for development can often have a buried past. But what about land that's protected? It turns out even that might not be enough to stop the concrete. Next, we're heading to Texas, where a former state park was sold after the state's lease on the land expired. As Brett Shipp shows us, a historian is now finding that the former park has a few secrets that are now in an incoming developer's hands.
The Fairfield Lake property comprises just over 5,000 pristine private.
When the Fairfield Lake State Park south of Dallas was being marketed for development last year, there was no mention of its important ties to the past. But captured in that promotional video, a glimpse of an island with, quote, development potential limited only by one's imagination. But it's actually limited by something else. A private cemetery on land once owned and still populated by the burial remains of freed slaves and their descendants, namely Edward Ned Titus. He and his wife Clora, side by side. Their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren also buried there, as are the descendants of other freed slaves.
All my people lived there, my grandfather and my grandmother.
We decided to see for ourselves, passing through two gates, an old abandoned coal power plant, across a narrow land bridge to that developer's island, and finally, the Hopewell Cemetery. Bass says as of today, power plant operators continue to grant them access to the cemetery. But when we first contacted her, she said the developer had never communicated with her.
I haven't received anything from them as of yet.
Does that bother you?
Well, I'm concerned now.
But it's not only the Freedmen's burial site that developers may have to navigate. Freestone County historian Sandy Bates Emmons says she's found more evidence of Freedmen's graves on the recently sold land.
And it was prepared by the Texas Parks and Wildlife Cultural Resources Program in Austin, Texas, back in December of 2002.
Emmons says subsequent research indicates it was a significant discovery, appropriately noted, mapped, even headstones, photographed, located on an eastern peninsula of the Fairfield Lake State Park, but the information was evidently ignored. It had been 20 years since the headstone of Easter Miles was discovered. With the property about to change hands, we decided it was time to revisit the site. Emmons and I trekked for over a mile through the forest and brush before coming upon the area that matched the photos.
It's here. It's here. There it is. And it has a hand toward Jesus.
Emmons learned a trick.
We might be able to make it out better.
Cover the faded etchings of the headstone in flour, and the mystery will be revealed.
See, there's the hand of Jesus, points upward to the sky, and it says Jesus, Easter. It does say Easter. Wife of, looks like D. Miles, gone but not forgotten. That's it. Hi, Easter, we've been looking for you. This is amazing.
Emmons again consults the archaeologist's study, reconfirming the importance of the site.
3 possible grave depressions suggest that several burials remain intact. This site is classified as a level 1 high management priority and should be avoided and protected.
Emmons took photos and notes and a tiny piece of comfort that a former slave might be the key to saving the park, as well as a piece of the state's buried past.
Because I'm just so happy that it's still here and they didn't take it away or do anything with it.
Brett Shipp, Spectrum News.
The developer is moving forward with a luxury home development and golf course on the old state park property. Spectrum News made several attempts to contact the developer and state archaeologists to learn about any preservation plans for the sites. We have yet to hear back. Coming up, before these sites can be recorded or restored, somebody first has to recognize what they are.
To be honest, we don't fully know the full landscape of where these cemeteries are located and how large they are.
And sometimes they're not even on dry land. Justice for All, Grave Betrayal continues after the break. Welcome back to Justice for All, Grave Betrayal. Identifying historic African-American grave sites can be tough. Even if the bodies aren't beneath a building, they could be hidden behind decades of overgrown brush, or worse, entirely underwater. We spoke with anthropologist Dr. Justin Donavant at UCLA, who explains the challenges and the importance of reclaiming these sites.
And what we're essentially going to be doing is swimming over it at something like this pace, and then turning around and swimming back.
These UCLA students could be the future of discovering and documenting our past.
Both north-south, east-west, and then around.
They're diving into underwater photogrammetry lessons. Their instructor, Dr. Justin Donovan, assistant professor of anthropology at UCLA.
I've been doing archaeology on land and underwater probably for the last 20 years now, exploring everything from shipwrecks to World War II wrecks to plantation sites on land to Buffalo Soldier sites as well.
Donovan teaching his students how to capture video and photos for creating 3D models for an upcoming trip in underwater archaeology and marine biology. He says due to development, there is a lot to discover, especially underwater.
There's also a number of construction projects, building of highways, dams, rivers, river management projects. All of those have altered the landscape a bit, and we still don't know what cemeteries are out there.
But he says it is critical that we find out.
I tell people it's a continuation of enslavement in certain ways. The idea that people were essentially valued based off of their ability to labor or their ability not to labor continues in the afterlife. And as these areas or these lands become valuable for other purposes, or as descended communities move on, they tend to be forgotten. In some cases, they're intentionally erased.
What used to be the hallowed ground of a church cemetery is now beneath a strip mall parking lot.
This is an injustice that really needs to be addressed and corrected.
But sometimes there isn't a good solution to give the dead the respect they deserve. So what can be done instead? Justice for All, Grave Betrayal returns after this. Many of the sites the Black Cemetery Network tracks are located in southern states, often with ties to slaves and their descendants. But the grave betrayal didn't stop at the Mason-Dixon line. When hidden Black cemeteries are discovered, the process of bringing dignity to the remains isn't always a simple one. Besides the issue of getting the owners of the land to cooperate, there are often zoning challenges. In New York City, the congregation of Second Asbury AME Church interred their deceased members in plots on Staten Island, starting in the late 1800s. Documentarian Heather Quinlan found after the church was torn down, the land was zoned for a commercial district. Now the bodies of about 1,000 African Americans lie below the parking lot of a shopping center. Victoria Manna spoke to both Quinlan and the descendants of one of the cemetery's most prominent burials about what's being done to honor the interred.
Off this busy road on Staten Island in New York City is a strip mall with a buried past. Livermore and Forest Avenue is now Benjamin Prine Way, named after the last enslaved African American on Staten Island. His body, along with the bodies of around 1,000 other African Americans, many of whom were slaves, are buried beneath the shopping center. It's the site of the former Cherry Lane Cemetery, where slaves were interred without headstones.
This is an injustice that really needs to be addressed and corrected.
David Thomas and Ruth Ann Hills are descendants of Prine.
They were people, they were human beings, and they were discarded and mistreated and thrown away like they were nothing. And that to me is sin.
Heather Quinlan has been working on a documentary about the cemetery. She says maps date the site to as far back as the 1800s. The property was purchased in 1954 by a real estate attorney and developer, which led to the demise of the burial ground. Quinlan, Thomas, and Hills have been pushing for recognition of the history to honor the people whose remains are now covered in asphalt.
Santander Bank, they have allocated funds and renegotiated the terms of their lease in order to create a memorial garden that will tell the story of what happened on this site. And it will include flora that has been chosen by the descendants.
Both Hales and Thomas say they are happy the community will have a place to honor those who are buried, but they ultimately want the bodies excavated and given a proper resting place.
There are babies here, there are families here, there are slaves here, there were freed black buried here, but none of them are remembered.
On Staten Island, Victoria Manna, Spectrum News.
The work to restore or honor cemeteries covered up by concrete can take years, but in many cases, a cemetery was never even there to begin with.
They dug a hole and put them in and then covered them up.
No markers, no names, and no dignity. How one man's mission to memorialize a mass grave is uncovering a dark past. Justice for All, Grave Betrayal continues after the break. Cemeteries can be very emotional places to mourn loss and to celebrate life, or to gather, share stories, and reflect. Welcome back to Justice for All, Grave Betrayal. While places like this can provide meaning and comfort to those mourning lost loved ones, some descendants of African Americans don't have that option. Sometimes the lost bodies discovered didn't belong to cemeteries at all. For decades, the mayor of Marion, North Carolina, has been researching the story of the Swannanoa Gap. In the late 1800s, railroad tunnels through the mountains were constructed by convicts and former slaves. More than 100 of them didn't survive the grueling labor. But the location of their remains was a mystery until just a few years ago. Tim Boyum joined the mayor on a search for the dead and a mission to honor their sacrifice.
This is Jarrett's Tunnel. It is the tunnel that is the farthest east of the 6 tunnels that remain.
That tunnel, dug out by hand with tools, rocks, and simple explosives in the late 1800s. Remnants remain to this day, reminding us of the back-breaking work. The jagged edges of the rocks seem natural, but there's nothing natural about what happened here.
We did not treat these people as though they were human. We treated them worse than we treated the tools.
Today, the landscape, subtly telling that horrific tale drip by drip.
The tears of the mountain is the way I think about it. Crying because of what's going on.
This late 1800s song, Swannanoa Tunnel,
I'm going back to
recorded in the mid-1900s
that Swannanoa Tunnel
to honor the work of the men who changed North Carolina forever.
Baby.
This is the single most important event that ever happened for all of Western North Carolina.
9 miles of railroad track and 7 tunnels. It opened up Asheville and the mountains to the rest of the state. The progress was priceless, but it came with a hefty price. It was built by the blood and tears of some 3,000 convicts, largely former slaves arrested under unjust Jim Crow laws. In 1875, the state penitentiary leased the convicts to complete the work. At least 139 died, mostly just tossed aside and forgotten until now.
Probably 98% were former slaves.
We first met Steve Little back in 2020, the height of COVID times.
Those who were old enough to remember probably would have thought slavery was terrible, but this is worse. I haven't stopped talking about it since I wrote that history paper in 1973 or whatever year it was.
A final thesis in college led to 50 years of research, books,
and I began to dig with my rock,
and even a one-man play. But in 2020, Mayor Little felt a big urge to turn research into action.
We're here to ask permission of the town Board of Aldermen to construct a memorial.
By the fall of 2021, a memorial to honor all the workers who built these rails.
These were the individuals, the humans who were out there. George, Zebulon, Thomas, Jesse, Noah.
But missing on that memorial, names of the 139 who died, 19 of them in a horrific cave-in.
Even though you can see the other end, that's 6 football fields away.
At 1,800 feet long, the Swannanoa Tunnel remains the most famous of the 7 tunnels. In 1897, crews pounded away on each side of the mountain, agonizing work for 18 months until they reached the middle as light finally snuck through. A celebration for officials, likely a relief for the convicts, but it didn't last long.
Well, a few hours after the celebration of meeting, there was a rumble, and almost instantly, rock fell.
Remember that song about the Swannanoa Tunnel? It references the catastrophe.
All caved in.
At least 19 convicts were killed, but their bodies weren't sent back home.
Well, they needed a place to bury them, and the most logical spot was a spot just to the south of the location of the tracks. Right in that field is where they dug a hole and put them in, and then covered them up.
Forgotten.
No marking.
No records of their death, no records of a burial. Lost forever. Or so we thought. In early 2022, Mayor Little, researchers, and a dog named Abby began searching for remains.
Are you scared that the dog won't detect anything?
Oh, yes.
On a foggy, cool February morning, Abby sniffed and sniffed.
Let's go. Get to work.
If she sat, it meant she detected something. The anticipation was electric.
I keep thinking, I think I see him starting to sit.
Then, after 45 minutes at the first site, Abby sat. And the next day, she sat multiple times near that Swannanoa Tunnel. Literally feet from Interstate 40, where thousands of people drive by day after day, oblivious to what happened a century ago.
I just can't tell you how excited that makes me to know that everything that I've done and read and researched for 40 years is coming together, and it's being shown to be accurate.
Abby's trained to sense chemical changes in the soil because the chance of finding remains is unlikely.
All the bodies are long gone.
But their stories remain, if we only knew who they were.
How are you, sir?
I'm good.
It's good to see you. Welcome to Raleigh.
Thank you.
In the fall of 2023, Steve Little traveled to North Carolina's capital of Raleigh. For years, if not decades, Steve Little has made one point clear.
These convicts were so disregarded, so disrespected and uncared for, that their names weren't even written down.
But a new clue arrived in the form of a state law that unsealed all kinds of records, including prison records from the 1800s.
Some of the words are hard to read.
Mayor Little scanned several old ledgers, line by line, hour after hour, looking for names from that Swannanoa Tunnel collapse. But as the day ended, no luck. But when we met again this May, he remains optimistic as ever.
I'm convinced there are bound to be other boxfuls of papers that were never turned in. Or there's another book, because there were only 131 convicts who were marked as dying on this project, and I know that's low.
Last fall, researchers dedicated a second memorial near the Swannanoa Tunnel, specifically honoring the convicts who died.
As though for 148 years, they've been waiting for this afternoon.
50 years into this, he's more focused than ever to honor these men and seek justice.
I would love it for the state to acknowledge we did wrong. Yes, we were told by law to confine them, to punish them, but we weren't told by the law to torture them.
A 150-year-old mystery without an ending so far. But you better believe as long as Steve Little's around, he will hunt for more clues. Tim Boyum, Spectrum News.
Unfortunately, that mass grave in North Carolina isn't unique. In 2018, in the Houston, Texas suburb of Sugar Land, the buried remains of 95 people were discovered at a construction site for a school district. Archaeologists found the bodies were mostly those of freed black slaves forced to work in convict labor camps. The school district is now taking donations to build a memorial and cemetery. The bodies were laid to rest where they were found, but the work continues to identify possible descendants. Across the country, the process to dignify the dead also impacts the living.
We didn't know that there was bodies interred here. At that time, we actually thought that they had been moved.
And when they found out, residents of a public housing complex were told they had to pack up and leave. Justice for All, Grave Betrayal continues after this. When the dead aren't given the space to rest in peace, it is the living that are impacted. The work to restore lost burial sites takes time and money, and it's rarely convenient for the people who live and work in the area. Residents of the Robles Park public housing complex in Tampa, Florida, found that out firsthand. Not only did the discovery of a cemetery beneath the complex force them to move, but years later, there still isn't a proper memorial. Dahlia Dangerfield explains just how close to home the issue hit.
Ellie Barkley,
Robert Patterson,
Henry Bailey,
Betsy Miles Powless,
Henry Blair.
These names unlock the mystery of Robles Park Village.
Frank Pippins,
J.F. Brewer.
Connecting residents to the hundreds of people buried underneath this public housing complex.
This is the front door. The cemetery went from here all the way down to the fence line, which led to the street, and then it went down this way. So pretty much everybody's back door, man, it was pretty much a cemetery. We find it more and more.
In 2019, Israel Aponte and his sons had just moved to Robles Park when archaeologists discovered these graves. Quite the shock for more than 24 residents who were suddenly told they had to go. Most of them, like Aponte, were relocated by the Tampa Housing Authority.
And, it was in a quick matter because we had to be out of there within 60 to 90 days from the moment they told us. So it was pretty much, a chaotic situation during that time.
Chief Operating Officer Leroy Moore led the Housing Authority's efforts to unearth what was underground.
We didn't know that there was bodies interred here. At that time, we actually thought that they had been moved. But we knew we had a historic site.
Today, the empty buildings, the road, the courtyard are all deemed sacred ground.
Clara Brown, Anthony Brigham.
With names that read like characters in a book.
Georgiana Allen, Yulee Galvin Alba, of George Belton.
This place now belongs to them.
People say that as long as a person's name is spoken, that person still lives.
Fred Hearns is a Tampa historian. He and Moore helped form a committee to preserve the cemetery with a permanent memorial park. There's even a design for it. But so far, the only memorial is draped around the gate.
This has been 5 years, and that's 5 years too long.
Moore says they cannot move forward because part of the cemetery actually extends to 2 businesses that are right next door. Now, initially there was talk about a land swap with the city, but so far nothing has happened. The mayor insists, though, that at least one deal is close.
It takes time. It shouldn't have taken as long as it has, and we could go down a list of reasons why it has taken so long, but my focus is on getting it done as quickly as possible.
Until there's a deal, there will likely be no permanent memorial. Moore says the group can't get the grants they need without owning the entire cemetery.
It's very important to call these names, to give life to those names.
Thelma Lewis Moore.
So after 5 years, they'll eventually replace the banner with a new one.
Christina Montgomery.
And wait for that lasting way to honor the names. In Hillsborough County, I'm Dahlia Dangerfield for Spectrum News.
Neglecting or destroying African American burial sites causes numerous problems: injustice, heartache, expense, inconvenience, even legal battles.
The last way you want to find a cemetery is by putting a backhoe in the ground to start a construction project.
But these are not problems without solutions. Up next on Justice for All, Grave Betrayal, the programs that are making a difference to make things right, and the roadblocks they still face. Welcome back to Justice for All, Grave Betrayal. As awareness of this issue has grown, more help has become available for archaeologists and volunteers to uncover the past. But there are still barriers and challenges to even the most well-intentioned plans. In 2022, Congress passed the African American Burial Grounds Preservation Act. It created a new program through the National Park Service. $3 million a year should be set aside to help research, document, and preserve burial sites. But the program remains dormant because despite being signed into law, Congress has yet to actually fund it. In contrast, NAGPRA, the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, was passed more than 30 years ago. Since then, nearly $60 million in grant funding has been awarded to descendants and tribes. Some states have taken the matter into their own hands. North Carolina has a state office of archaeology. The office provides resources for residents to document and designate historic cemeteries. There's no funding currently available specifically for cemetery research, but the state does administer regular local historic preservation grant programs. In Texas, cemeteries that are at least 50 years old are eligible for a historic designation. Anyone can contact the Texas Historical Commission to add a cemetery to the Texas Historic Sites Atlas. The Texas Freedom Colonies Project also runs a voluntary African American cemetery registry on its website. Last year, Florida passed a bill to fund restoration of historic Black cemeteries. $1 million has been set aside for grants of up to $50,000 each
to help with both research and preservation. That can include things like land surveys, repairing grave markers, and fixing the landscaping.
We're there to help the communities where cemeteries have been erased and to help. There's that research component of the Abandoned African American Cemeteries Grant is a wonderful one to apply for if there is a community that is concerned they may have an erased cemetery and they want to do the research to identify the individuals that might have been buried there.
The state also maintains a database that developers and cities can use to determine whether potential construction sites could contain historic cemeteries. In New York, the state legislature unanimously passed a bill that would have forced developers to stop construction if they discover a burial ground or human remains. However, Governor Kathy Hochul vetoed it, writing that it didn't protect property owners' rights, arguing that they could lose control over their land for an unspecified period of time. In Florence, Kentucky, more than 100 African American graves with no headstones were discovered at an already established cemetery. The city has since unveiled a monument to commemorate everyone buried in the section. Not far from there, college students are working on a project to make sure people never lose track of where their loved ones are laid to rest. A land surveying class mapped out a large northern Kentucky cemetery, charting grave spaces for future reference. Sam Neff explains how it works.
Cincinnati State's land surveying certification class has spent months mapping out half of the historic Linden Grove Cemetery in Covington.
So there's never been a boundary on Linden Grove. So we were the first to do it. We started off with locating old monumentation we could find. We pulled original deeds for the cemetery. We went out and found everything we could to come back and tell them this is where your property line lies.
On top of that, they located hundreds of graves, an impactful experience for Jesse Wagoner.
It was neat to see how much history was here in Covington. What we're doing now is setting up the groundworks for an online basis system to where people can go through and find loved ones and see stones that maybe they don't live nearby. There's going to be quite a few of these graves that we won't be able to make out. The hope is that we can make out the people around them and then slowly work our way in to being able to identify some of these unmarked graves.
Cincinnati State is one of a few colleges that offers a 4-year surveying degree.
It's very important because the history aspect, there's a lot that went into it. It's basically the framework of how the whole city and Covington's Tri-State was laid out. If no one knows how to do it, you lose that generation of information.
Now, future generations who will be able to easily look up where their relatives are laid to rest can thank them. In Covington, Sam Neff, Spectrum News.
The journey to right past wrongs isn't easy or cheap, but the volunteers, city leaders, and organizations that make it happen will tell you this is a cause worth fighting for. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Tammy Fields. We'll see you again next time for another Justice for All. Stay safe, everyone, and stay informed.